Buenas noches. Bueno, pues qué gusto que seguimos acá disfrutando, compartiendo este encuentro, mirándonos, encontrándonos. Este es uno de los días más interesantes, creo yo, porque estamos cerrando también la actividad del encuentro acá en Ciudad Universitaria. Estamos por vivir dos de los acontecimientos más emocionantes también, que es la presencia de Donna Kaz y en un ratito más en la Sala de Nezahualcóyotl, la conferencia magistral de Judith Butler. Y pues estamos contentísimos de estar acá en esta fiesta continua en la que seguimos encontrando motivos para pensar juntos, para mirarnos juntos, para motores también para este encuentro de humor, ruido y performance. Y bueno, para presentar a Donna Kaz está con nosotros Ana Francis Mor. Antes de dar el micrófono, solamente quiero agradecer puntualmente a la Cátedra Bergman por haber sido desde todo este tiempo uno de los colaboradores más entrañables para este encuentro del Instituto Hemisférico. Apoyó con la organización también de este evento de Donna Kaz y con el evento de Judith Butler. Entonces, bueno, agradecer a Cátedra Bergman y agradecer también a la Sala Miguel Covarrubias y a todo el equipo, la planta técnica, toda la gente de difusión cultural UNAM, porque bueno, creo que hasta ahora todo ha funcionado espléndidamente. Muchas gracias.
Hola. Hace unos años estábamos las Reinas Chulas en un trabajo de investigación muy serio, es decir, estábamos tiradas en la sala de espera de un aeropuerto en una escala interminable. Y estábamos viendo cosas en internet, buscando videos, etcétera, etcétera, y ahí nos encontramos una imagen que me quedó clavada en el corazón para siempre, aquella imagen que las Guerrilla Girls publicaron en 1985 sobre el porcentaje de mujeres artistas en el Metropolitan y el porcentaje de desnudos de mujeres en el mismo museo. Con aquella imagen y aquel porcentaje nos pusimos a platicar y a discutir sobre los desnudos en el teatro, sobre cuándo habíamos visto algún desnudo masculino total en el teatro, y la cantidad de desnudos femeninos que habíamos visto en el teatro. Eso nos llevó a discutir sobre la cantidad de directoras y dramaturgas puestas en escena, etcétera, etcétera. Aquella idea eventualmente detonó el nacimiento de la Liga Mexicana de Mujeres de Teatro, también detonó la petición de paridad para las obras de teatro en la Muestra Nacional de Teatro misma, que fue desechada, es decir, es una guerra que todavía no ganamos. Pero me parece muy importante. Yo en aquel momento no necesariamente sabíamos de la importancia de las Guerrilla Girls, pero aquella idea que plasmaron en una muy buena imagen detonó millones de cosas y detonó a muchísimas mujeres involucradas en pensar la paridad y en pensar la inequidad en el teatro mexicano. Y por eso siempre les voy a estar agradecida. Donna Kaz, aka Afra Ben, is a leading feminist voice in the nation on how to combine activism and art. For the past 20 years, she has led the touring activist troupe Guerrilla Girls on tour around the world with talks focused on how to create plays, performances, and visual works which addresses issues such as violence against women, pay equity, body image, and reproductive rights. She has received the Venus Theatre Lifetime Achievement Award, the Yoko Ono Courage Award for the Arts, the Art is a Hammer Award, and the Skowhegan Medal. Her memoir, Unmasked Memoirs of a Guerrilla Girl on Tour, was named Best Non-Fiction Book of 2017 by the Devil's Kitchen Literary Festival. Kaz speaks regularly at conferences, universities, and festivals on trauma transformation, social change via art, grassroots activism, and the feminist art movement. Please join me in welcoming, por favor, acompáñame a darle la bienvenida a la Guerrilla Girl, Afra Ben, aka Donna Kaz.
Hola. Hola. Hello. Thank you. My name is Afra Ben. I was born in 1640 and I think I look pretty good. Now, Afra Ben is my guerrilla girl name. Donna Kaz is my real name. Afra Ben was a 16th century playwright. She was the first woman to make a living as a writer in the United Kingdom. And all Guerrilla Girls take the names of dead women artists. And when we appear in public, we usually wear gorilla masks to conceal our true identities. And we do this to focus on the issues of sexism and discrimination instead of on ourselves. That way, no one can accuse us of doing this just to promote our own careers as artists. So I stand before you tonight unmasked because I'm here to promote my own career as an artist. You know, I know you all thought that this was a lecture or a presentation, but it's not. I am happy to inform you that this is a party, right? And you are all on the VIP guest list. Yeah, and what would a party be without food, right? So I have a question for you. ¿Quién quiere un plátano? Who wants a banana? All right, over here. Up here. Wait. I know, way back there, right? 2 more. Excellent. Okay. So then we start with the next question. How many feminists does it take to screw in a light bulb? Tonight I'm going to talk about humor and how the Guerrilla Girls developed our own style of feminist comedy and used it to make activist art. But first, a disclaimer. When I say the word feminist, I mean intersectional feminism. Yeah, feminism. Feminism that is not only white, middle class, cisgendered, and able-bodied. We all agree that feminists experience oppression in many different ways. And so when I use the word feminist or feminism, I'm not talking about only those people who have had experienced the same barriers that I have. Besides feminist humor, I'm going to talk about some difficult subjects. Not everything can be made humorous. And if at any time you are uncomfortable with what I am saying, it's okay to leave. I'm going to share my experiences, both funny and not so funny. And I will take questions from you at the end. But first, I want to talk about what it was like to wear the gorilla mask. The gorilla mask is a very effective tactic for the Guerrilla Girls. People listened to me when I had my mask on. I was taken seriously when I had my mask on. I was taken seriously when no one knew my real name, when I was Afra Ben. Only when I was anonymous did I have any power as an artist. And so one of the reasons that I decided to unmask is because I thought this was pathetic. I had to wear a mask and be Afra Ben in order for anyone to begin to talk about sexism and discrimination. So sexism and discrimination are still everywhere. For example, in the United States, February is Black History Month and March is Women's History Month. So what happens the rest of the year? Discrimination. So for the next 40 minutes or so, I declare this a sexist-free zone where we will all celebrate feminism. And I'm happy to let you know that in spite of what you think, it's a great time to be a feminist. Feminism is experiencing a renaissance like we have not seen. It is making a comeback. It is gathering strength. It is a swift wind sweeping the world. Feminism is a part of that wind. And it's good to be the wind. The wind has power. The wind is unpredictable. The wind has the ability to mess things up. And so today I'm going to share with you some of the ways that I, as a Guerrilla Girl, went out into the world and messed things up. I'm going to do this by sharing with you what I call 9 steps to make a difference with activism and art. And these are the ways over the past 20 years that I, as a member of the Guerrilla Girls, has created collaborative activist art. So I became a Guerrilla Girl in 1997. The Guerrilla Girls started in 1985. And by 1997, they were experiencing a little bit of burnout. They had been working for 12 years and they were exhausted. So they decided to ask women into the group who were not only visual artists, but were other types of artists as well. Performers, choreographers, film directors. And I am a theater artist, that's my background. And so I joined the Guerrilla Girls, they asked me to join. I actually met a Guerrilla Girl, and I was complaining to her about how sexist the theater world was. And she said, you know, you'd make a good Guerrilla Girl. And I said, well, do you know any? And she said, well, I happen to be one. So that's how I got to be a Guerrilla Girl. It was by chance. So when at my first meeting, I said to the Guerrilla Girls, you know, I really don't know that much about visual art world, but what I do know is the theater world, and the theater world is just as sexist as the visual art world. There are not a lot of opportunities for women, for artists of color, for queer gender artists in the theater world. So I propose that we attack the theater world because everyone thinks that the theater is so liberal, right? The theater is the arts, it's liberal, everyone has a place at the table. That's really not true. So at the first meeting, I proposed that we take the saying found in every theater program, probably around the world, and turn it into this. In this theater, the taking of photographs, the use of a recording device, and the production of plays by women is strictly prohibited. During the current season, this theater will produce no plays by women, a public service message. So there were a handful of new Guerrilla Girls who were into theater and performance, and we formed the theater committee. We put this on stickers, and we went to all the toilet stalls of all the theaters in New York City that were not producing any plays by women in their main stage seasons. In 1997-98, the Roundabout Theater, Primary Stages, Signature Theater, the New Group, the Atlantic Theater Company, George Street Playhouse were just some of the theaters not producing any plays by women. These are huge commercial theaters in New York City. So we decided to go into these theaters and sticker the bathroom toilet stalls. We would volunteer to be ushers because they need free ushering, so we would help patrons to their seats. And then, in the intermission, we would go in the toilet stalls and sticker the bathrooms. And we had sympathetic baboon boys. We call men who work with us baboon boys. And they would go into the men's room and sticker the men's room. And we would go back every month, and we would go back into the toilet stall, and we could see where they had tried to scrape off our sticker, and we would just slap another sticker right over it. So here's a hint for you. Avery labels are very hard to remove. So after months of stickering, the Roundabout Theater announced their next season would include 2 plays by women. They had not produced a play by a woman in 12 years. So we took complete credit for the change. We thought, wow, yes, we are off. We have changed theater with a sticker campaign overnight. This is great. We ended sexism in theater. We can go home. We can take off our masks. But unfortunately, the next season they went back to producing a season of plays only by men. So we didn't change theater. Then that was very unfortunate that happened. So at this time, the late 90s, it was really, really hard to get anyone to talk about discrimination in theater. So Guerrilla Girls' tactic is to just put the stats out there. This theater's not producing any plays by women. And we leave it up to the audience, to the theater makers, to the playwrights, to the artistic directors, everyone to start talking about this problem to solve it, because we didn't know how to solve it. So from 1997 to 2001, the Guerrilla Girls Theater Committee created almost all of the work of the Guerrilla Girls. And here are some of the ways we made collaborative activist art. I talked about the Theater Committee. We were a small group of 4 to 5 Guerrilla Girls, and we would meet every 28 days. Thank you. And we were able to produce a lot of work because we kept our numbers small. We were also theater artists and we were used to collaboration. We decided that since we did not get any credit or any money for doing our activist work, we were going to enjoy it. It would be fun. We would have confidence in our art and our ability to create it. We would stand behind it. And so the first step we followed was to keep our committee small. It was a huddle. And this is the first step to make activist art. Huddle up. An idea develops slowly if kept inside one mind. An idea develops slowly if kept inside one mind. This is probably the most important thing I will say to you tonight. You have to cross-pollinate your ideas to let them grow. And this is what we learned as a Guerrilla Girl. This is the basis of the Guerrilla Girls Theater Committee success, our huddle. Step number 2 is to collect evidence. We used evidence and statistics that we collected ourselves. Now, you have to remember, this is the late 90s. There was no World Wide Web. There was no social media. So we had to buy newspapers and magazines, and we would look through them, and we would count. We would count the theaters, the number of plays by women they were producing, the number of plays by artists of color they were producing, and we would gather those stats that way. It's also easy to do if you go into a museum. You could just look at the wall and count how many paintings are by men and how many are by women. And we call this the 5-minute research technique. So we backed everything up that we said with statistics. People would say to us, aren't there just more male playwrights than there are female playwrights? And we would say, no, we actually checked. We did. We called up universities and asked how many people were studying, the gender of people studying playwriting. We called up unions, organizations of playwrights, and said how many members are male, how many are female. And so we had those stats behind us. I know a lot of people don't like stats because you can skew stats, and everybody skews their stats, the right wing and the left wing. But it's important to at least have them in order to start a conversation. The third step is to think like an expert because you are one. A lot of times as artists, we think, oh, we're not the experts are somebody else. But we do not recognize that our experiences makes us experts. Who better to know about discrimination than someone who has experienced it? Who better to know about humor than someone who can make others laugh? Tell your story, share your personal experience, connect yourself to your issue. People want to hear a story. Get comfortable with thinking about yourself as an expert because there is value in your life experience, no matter how old you are. So in the early days of the Guerrilla Girls, we would put up posters on the streets in the middle of the night, whenever there was an empty space. This was in New York City, in Soho, which was the heart of the visual art world. But we had to find new places to put up our work because these places to put up posters were disappearing. It was very difficult. So before our sticker campaigns turned into postcard writing campaigns, as well as ads in magazines. And we also did something called a fax blitz, where we would pick a time, an hour, and we would all sit by a fax machine, and we would just fax our posters to artistic directors for the entire hour. And tie up their fax machine. And so here is a sample of some of the other visual work that the theater committee created in the late 90s. There's a tragedy on Broadway, and it isn't Elektra. Only 8% of the plays and less than 1% of the musicals on Broadway were written by women. We think that's even sadder than a Greek tragedy. There's only one explanation for what's currently playing: discrimination. And let me point out that at this time we were discussing the use of the word woman and how it was a term which was not inclusive of what we meant. We tried women of color, artists of color. Our goal was to be succinct in our text, but sometimes we failed because we were just too narrow in our focus of those terms. But we did want to find new ways, new humorous ways into old issues. We didn't just want to say discrimination is bad, because no one will listen to you if you say that. So we brainstormed for a while and we came up with this idea. Instead of saying discrimination is bad, why don't we celebrate it? And so we came up with this poster. Oh, the joys of being a woman playwright. You're in control. You produce your own plays because if you don't, they won't get produced. You're special. During Black History Month or Women's History Month, your work receives at least one staged reading. You're hot. If you're under the age of 30, your career might last a few seasons. You save money. You don't have to buy evening gowns for all those award ceremonies. You live in the moment. No need to obsess about your place in theater history. You won't have one. You don't fear failure. Your breasts are the only things that'll flop. 81% of all the plays produced in the U.S. during the 1998-99 season were written by white men, a public service message from Guerrilla Girls, conscience of the theater world. So we did not only address theater, we also created work about political issues, and here's one. I love feminism more than ever. Then women earn less than men. Now women earn less than men. Then, Equal Rights Amendment, not part of the U.S. Constitution. Now, Equal Rights Amendment, not part of the U.S. Constitution. Then, less than 50% of all U.S. senators and representatives are women. Now, less than 50% of all U.S. representatives are women. Now, FYI, the new stat is less than 22% of all U.S. senators and representatives are women. That's a 7% increase, which may not seem like a lot because it's not. Okay, it brings me back to that question. How many feminists does it take to screw in a light bulb? One of the most prevalent stereotypes of feminists is that we have no sense of humor. Feminists are not funny. Women are not funny. Trans women are not funny. Queer-gendered people are not funny. Non-males are not funny. And all/no-gendered people are definitely not funny. So all these statements, of course, are ridiculous. Humor spans all ages, all cultures, and all genders. To be human is to be humorous. Yet to make someone laugh is to have power, because humor is disarming. Humor is a weapon. I think this is why when we label someone or something as funny, we acknowledge that it has strength. As a Guerrilla Girl, I tried to use humor in everything. The Guerrilla Girls' work has always been rooted in humor. We discovered that to make someone laugh was to get their attention. And what better way to get someone to think about difficult subjects like gender parity, equal rights, reproductive rights, or discrimination than with laughter? So use humor. That's my next step, number 4. I wish this was a Guerrilla Girl image, but it's not. I don't know who did this. I found it on the internet. I keep looking for the source, but I don't know. If someone out here probably made it up. In 2001, the Guerrilla Girls Theater Committee evolved into Guerrilla Girls on Tour. So we became a touring theater company, and we turned our visual work into plays, performances, and street theater, and experimented with using comedic techniques like parody, sketch, improv, slapstick, and song and dance to develop our own theater style. We incorporated audience participation like writing assignments, Q&As, and sing-alongs to further connect. And we have toured the world with the goal to entertain, educate, and to transform our audiences into becoming Guerrilla Girl activists themselves, to take on issues in their own communities and prove that feminists are funny. Since I put on a gorilla mask and became Afro-Ben, I have really enjoyed making people laugh. But I have also learned that if you are funny, some people will resent the power that you possess. The audience which laughs loudest might also be the audience which will write the most hate mail. And here's an example of a letter that I received. Dear Guerrilla Girls on Tour, I am a white male who attended your presentation at John Carroll University as a requirement for my philosophy class. I agree that women should not be treated unfairly, but I believe that the way you presented your argument was not only rude, but irresponsible. Even though you supported your argument with facts and statistics, I believe that your attacks on political figureheads such as George W. Bush and Arnold Schwarzenegger were not only unconnected to your argument, but also ridiculous. Both of these men are not directly related to the inequalities of women. Lance Z. Dear Lance, yes, they are. It was fun writing those short replies. Step number 5 in combining and creating collaborative activist art is to queer it up. Now, when I say queer it up, I mean in the sense that this word is about moving outside narrowness. It is a word that gives space to explore and may include many different groups of people. So by saying queer it up, I mean make sure you are not falling into any old patterns that reinforce the rigid definitions of male and female. Resist heterosexism, cis-heterosexism. If your group is made up of people with similar backgrounds and experiences, break it up. Make sure you have input from multiple POVs. And that means not being afraid to make mistakes and to have some very uncomfortable conversations. Men are feminists. White people stand with Black Lives Matter, and so on. So don't buy into the line, if it's not my personal experience, it's not my politics, because that is crippling to all social movements. Step number 6 is to create a sense of urgency. This is urgent. Activist art and feminist comedy must contain a sense of urgency. Change has to happen now. We cannot wait any longer. Both the issue you address and the art you create about it should be understood as being critical. It would be dangerous to keep things as they are. So how does one create a sense of urgency? Well, 1, capture their attention. Humor is a great idea. And 2, explain why we do not have a year, a month, or a week. Change must happen now. Now, here is an NYPD police officer asking me about my sense of urgency. The Guerrilla Girls Theater Committee decided that we wanted to go big. We wanted to organize a protest, and we wanted to focus on women in theater. And so we organized a protest of the Tony Awards. The Tony Awards are Broadway's big awards in New York City, and we chose the Tony Awards because women don't win Tony Awards, because Broadway is where you can actually make a living as an artist. And you will find that the bigger the institution, the bigger the museum, the bigger the theater, the more money that is involved, you will find the least amount of diversity in their artistic staff. And so that's why we picked the Tony Awards to protest. At the 52nd Annual Tony Awards, not one woman had ever won a Tony for directing a play. So that's in 52 years. So first we went to the TKTS booth. If any of you have been in New York City, you know there's this booth where you can buy half-price tickets to Broadway shows. And we went there and we asked people online to put our stickers in Broadway toilet stalls. We gave them our stickers, and we gave them a little thing that said, "Today we are asking you to help us change American theater by going to the toilet." When you go to the theater, put up this sticker in the bathroom and help us flush out discrimination in New York theaters. Thank you for being a guerrilla girl or a baboon boy for a day. So we thought this was a great idea. We spent hours going up and down the line, but unfortunately everyone thought we were cast members from The Lion King. That's true. They only wanted to know if we had free tickets or discounted tickets to The Lion King. No, we said no. And so that was a bust. So we decided to just do a big protest, okay? So we collaborated with another art group for our protests, and they were called the Art Cheerleaders. Now, this is a group from Boston. They're Boston art school students dedicated to highlighting the connection between the arts and community interests through cheerleading. And because we used to wear these big gorilla masks, they became our voice because we couldn't really chant. So they came in with, the traditional hey, hey, ho, ho, discrimination on Broadway's got to go. But then they also invented their own chants, like, the Tony is baloney because the system doesn't place value on the work of women. That is a disgrace. Yeah. And they were really cool. So we invited them, and then we sent out an email blast. Remember when you had email blasts? And we invited the public, everyone we knew, to come to this protest. And we said, be a guerrilla girl for a day. So here we are with the Art Cheerleaders, and we made these paper bag gorilla masks so that everyone could wear a mask. So you put the paper bag over your head, and on the back it said, I'm a guerrilla girl. And because it was an award ceremony, we decided to wear black satin capes so we could blend in with everyone else in evening gowns. And we put on the back our tragedy on Broadway, and it isn't Electra. And we got a lot of attention. People were running out saying, what are you doing? Who are you? What are you trying to, promote? And unfortunately, eventually a huge police officer came up and said, if you don't take your masks off right now, we are going to arrest you. Now, in the United States, there's a law that dates back to the Ku Klux Klan that says you cannot protest wearing a mask. And so none of us wanted to be arrested, so we left, we watched the Tony Awards, and nobody won a Tony for, women didn't win for direction. So, after you do a protest like that and you're unsuccessful and you're threatened to be arrested and you feel like nothing's happened and no one has listened to you, it can be very depressing. But you must press on. I am happy to say that today, 10 women have won a Tony for directing. One of them just last Sunday. And I am sorry also, though, to report that that's 9 more than have won an Oscar in the same category. So only one woman has ever won an Oscar for directing a film. So we still have a long way to go, but it's important to just celebrate when we do see some progress. Step number 7 is learn how to play defense. To win fights, you have to be in fights. To win fights, you have to be in fights. And unfortunately, most of the time, all of the time, I can't remember a time when I was on the offensive team. I've always been defense. I've always been playing defense. I've always felt like I've been playing defense. But, there is a good way to play defense. Learn how to play it. A very famous United States football coach said, the team that wins is the team with the best defense. And so embrace being on the defensive team. Communicate, support, stay on your feet. Realize you have a great distance to travel, but learn how to play defense. And I talked about this before. This is step number 8, celebrate the wins, both big and small. And this is important because they will not happen often. Change happens very slowly. But I am happy to report in the last 20 years, since first attacking sexism in theater in 1997, a lot of groups have sprung up all over the world addressing the exact same issues. And we all have been saying that ending sexism in theater or the visual arts is not about demanding that the work of white men go away. Sexism and discrimination affects everyone and keeps us all from moving forward. Gender parity is not a pie. If others have equal rights, it doesn't mean there's less for you. There is room at the table for everyone. About 3 years ago, I decided to write a book about my experiences as a guerrilla girl, a memoir. It's called Unmasked, Memoirs of a Guerrilla Girl on Tour. And I decided to write this book because I really wondered, how did I end up wearing a mask? How did I end up becoming a guerrilla girl? How did I end up identifying as a feminist activist artist? So I started to look at my past, and this book is a braided story. When I was very young, I went to school to study theater. In my early 20s, I moved to New York City with the dreams of being a theater maker. Within months of graduating, I had moved to New York, I had an apartment, I had a job, and unfortunately I met an actor whose name is William Hurt, and we began a 3-year relationship that was full of violence. So I am a survivor of sexual assault and domestic violence. It took me 12 years to acknowledge that it had happened to me, and it took me 35 years to write about it. And this book was published 1 year before the resurgence of the Me Too movement. And as Oprah Winfrey so eloquently said, we have all lived too many years in a culture broken by brutally powerful men. For too long, women have not been heard or believed if they dare speak the truth to the power of these men. But their time is up. Their time is up. Their time is up. Women who have experienced violence tell the truth. Survivors do not lie. The only thing we are guilty of is taking the time to realize our abusers are not the leading characters in the story of our lives. I am telling my story now, 35 years later, because that's how long it took me to realize that my story is about me. So my book, Unmasked, is about my process of disclosure. It was the right time for me to tell my story. I honor all out in the audience tonight who are survivors. And I do not stand here to say that everyone has to tell your story. I stand here just to relate that it was time for me to tell mine, but it's also perfectly fine to keep your story hidden as long as you want. We must make room, though, for all the stories, not just from the well-off, the well-known, the white women. We must listen for the stories from the black and the brown women, from the queer people, from transgender folk, from those with disabilities, from Native Americans, from all survivors who have been marginalized in this conversation. And now I'd like to show you some work we did around the world. As Guerrilla Girls on Tour's mission was to travel the world, meeting and collaborating with activist artists, we developed a piece called Feminists Are Funny. And we would rework it for each country that we went to. We went to Argentina during the Bush years, and here's one of the visual works in our show. Vacancy. While on tour, our cage at the Bronx Zoo available to secure weapons of mass destruction. And I just want you to notice in this poster, Dick Cheney is hoarding all the bananas. We also did this poster about body image, and I will read it to you in English. Reduce cellulite, begone dry skin, vanish unwanted facial hair, diminish stretch mark, fade age spots, eliminate feminine odor, lose weight, dissolve belly fat, erase wrinkles, reduce weight, vanish unwanted facial hair, diminish stretch marks, fade age spots, eliminate feminine odor, dissolve belly fat, erase wrinkles. I think somebody wants me to disappear. We also did a community collaboration with activists in Poland, and our play, The History of Women in Theater Condensed, included a section on Stanisława Szybaszewska, a famous Polish woman playwright. And here we are at the International Women's Theatre Festival in the UK, where we collaborated with the Kendall Youth Theatre, and this was about if the United States was ready for a woman president. We also did street theater in China. We were part of Shanghai MoMA's Intrude 365, and we did a piece on domestic violence in China. It was a silent street theater piece. And as you can see, our masks started to evolve. They got smaller, and we started to switch them out from gorilla masks to other things. And here we are about to go on stage at the Women Playwrights International Conference in Sweden. Our costumes are hazmat suits because we needed hazmat suits to avoid discrimination. So as Afro-Ben, I am very lucky to have traveled the world and had some incredible experiences. And I just want to share some of those personal experiences with you now. I got to meet Gloria Steinem, which was incredible. And Yoko Ono presented the Guerrilla Girls with her Courage Award for the Arts. I have performed with the only female kabuki troupe in Japan. I also attended Obama's inauguration. And you know what? I was invited to Meghan and Harry's royal wedding. I had to be a footman, but that's okay. And also, I tried to break up Pelosi and Trump. And recently, I had beer with the Pope. You know, I stretched the truth in a few of those. I'm sorry. I didn't really have beer with the Pope. I had vodka shots with the Pope. Now, make no mistake, I don't spend all my time photoshopping myself into history. Sometimes I use Final Cut Pro. Now, being a funny feminist is difficult, and sometimes I'm funny even when I don't want to be. This is because I was a really bad speller. I asked my friend, how do you say without fear in Spanish? And everyone was taking a picture of this poster, and I thought, this is not that unique. And then I realized my mistake. But it actually fit. You know, it actually fit. So, thank you all very much, especially Hemi. You've all been really welcoming to me, and I'm really, really happy to be here today. My talk is an ebook, Push Back 9 Steps to Make a Difference with Activism and Art, and you can find it on guerrillagirlsontour.com. But I just want to end by reviewing the 9 steps, and I know I haven't gotten to the 9th one yet, but let's review. So it's 1, huddle up. 2, collect evidence. 3, think like an expert because you are one. 4, use humor. 5, queer it up. 6, this is urgent. 7, learn how to play defense. And 8, celebrate the wins. And the last step to creating comedy in the 21st century is to believe. Boom. Shit hits the fan. Life sucks. Every day brings fresh oppression. Forces with tremendous power and prestige outpace you until you feel as though you will never win. And if that weren't enough, you are hit in the face with a bucket of ice-cold truth. You are not the right age, sex, weight, color, or class. You will never win, nor will you ever fit in anywhere. You have missed every single opportunity that knocked. Your head swells with a pressure you are sure will make it pop off once you stop banging it against the wall. Still, wrongs do not cease from rising up around you. Every day you are a witness to people being held down for daring to expose who they are: black, female, trans, disabled, Muslim, survivor, lesbian, poor. Some of these people are killed. The world feels as if it might blow up any second. You put your head down and hide. You believe there are others more capable to fight the many battles around the globe. You retreat into the jungle. And then one day you wake up angry. It's not like you have never woken up angry before, but this time it is different. The anger is not anger anymore. The anger is you. And anger does not hide. It comes out of you in words on a page and sharp lines on a paper. It is the music of your voice and the sound of your feet marching in movement. When you close your eyes, your anger takes you directly to a harmonious world where you fit in. The energy you feel when you are angry is so strong, it might possibly change the world. So you start the long walk out of the jungle and into the fight. You take your angry body and you push up against the foes of a peaceful world with incredible fortitude and everlasting endurance. You will not give up until you win. These are the stages of activist art I have experienced. Being overwhelmed, retreating into the jungle, sending the frontline support, realizing you must contribute in a more present way, using one's rage to create activist art, and finding the power of the push. Let's face it, the world has gone bananas. But in the darkest moments of despair, you can always count on the deepest part of yourself, the part from which ideas come, to be there. Maybe it has not been accessed in a long time. Maybe it needs a little waking up. It is this creative self that is both powerful and brave. We are all artists because we all have the ability to imagine. We got this. We can do this. Together we have the power to mess things up. So how many feminists does it take to screw in a light bulb? Feminists do not need light bulbs because we are the light. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bueno, pues vamos a algunas preguntas. Por favor, no desaprovechen el tiempo. ¿Quién quiere preguntar algo? Venga. Acá.
Cuando tú me digas.
Questions? Yeah.
A mí me gustaría saber, por favor, ¿qué piensa usted de la relación entre el feminismo y el antiespecismo? Es decir, estar también las feministas conectadas con la lucha a favor de los derechos de los animales, porque ni oprimidas ni opresoras.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think so. I think that we are all connected to the oppressed. I think that different feminists feel differently, but that's something that should not happen. I mean, I can only speak, I think that all oppressions are connected. And so that's why I like to talk about that we have to come together. Sometimes it's difficult for us to come together because we are sometimes we also have opposing ideas. And that's why I was talking about difficult conversations. It's important to converse, even with someone who doesn't have the same idea. We have to find common ground, okay? Because now more than ever, we have to find common ground because we're working against big oppression. So we have to come together. I hope that answered your question.
¿Quién más?
Boa tarde, meu nome é Thalita Andrade, sou uma lesboativista lá de Salvador, Bahia, Brasil. Amanhã a gente vai estar de greve geral. O Brasil está de luto, né? A gente está com um antipresidente no poder. E estou aqui muito feliz por estar aqui agora. E queria perguntar para a Dona se ela está menstruada, porque... E depois de Dona, eu pergunto também a todas as mulheres, estou tentando coletar sangue menstrual desde o primeiro dia para jogar no espaço público, um espaço, né, ele não, ele nunca, ele jamais, uma obra lesbofeminista, ativista, que vai estar ocupando, né, a sede do governo do México para deixar seu recado, para jogar sangue coletivo de nós mulheres. E aí eu queria saber se é isso. Um abraço. Feminista, lesbo. Uou!
Okay, so I don't think I need to respond to that. Unfortunately, I have no more menstrual blood. Or fortunately. But anyway, go for it. Oh, come on, I know there are some. Wait for it.
¿Puedo preguntar algo yo?
Yeah.
¿Cuál es tu trabajo favorito en teatro? ¿Y cómo introduces el trabajo de las Guerrilla Girls en escenarios convencionales?
We get this question a lot, who's our favorite artist, and we feel like we have to just support all living artists and not pick one. This is also why we only chose the name of dead women artists, because to promote the history of women, which is excused. So I love all art that is made by women and people who identify as women, and I don't like to just pick one. How do we introduce ourselves? Well, it's very disarming for a lot of audiences. One of the techniques that we just decided to use was, because we wear masks, we light the audience like you're all lit, so we can communicate, so we can see you. Our masks got smaller and smaller and smaller because they were really a barrier. And now I am unmasked. But those were the techniques we used. And we talked to the audience, and we tried to engage the audience. In fact, that's why we call our shows parties, not really shows, so that we celebrate feminism and that we are all in this together. So that's some of the techniques that we developed over the years. We try to talk to the audience right away at the beginning of a show so they know, they get comfortable. They don't, we do bring people on stage, but people don't want to come on stage, that's fine, and things like that. So it's just been really, really fun engaging with the audience. And I also think that it gives, as performers, it gives us an entry into you as the audience, and there's not such a barrier. That's what we wanted to knock down, the barrier between us, okay?
Thank you so much. It was such a fantastic talk.
Thank you.
My question is, yo tengo una pregunta y ya estoy con el micrófono allá.
Okay, my question, it's working.
Yes.
Is what kind of work is being done now? If not by Guerrilla Girls, then by whom? And I think that you're right that there's some progress, but so slow. And what would you see as kind of a way for people here and in other places to continue and to push forcefully in this direction?
Yeah. There are a lot of other groups now. In New York, there's 50-50 in 2020, which is calling for 50% representation by women and artists of color by the year 2020, which is next year. I don't know if that's going to happen. There are organizations all over the world, women playwright producers, but there's also activist group who are actively trying to get, there's the LA Female Playwrights Initiative, there's Little Black Dress Inc., there's a lot of different groups. If you just Google feminist theater or women in theater, you can find them. And I think what we should do is, whenever you go to the theater, check out what they're producing. And if they are not producing a diverse season, ask them why. Write them a letter, send them an email. It's very easy to do that, A lot of times theaters would say, we used to do a girl cot list every year. We would list on our, and someone took this over, on our website we would list every theater in the United States that was not producing any plays by women. And people got very offended. They would call us up and they would say, take us off your list, because we produced a reading by a woman 5 years ago in alternate Thursdays on, in the Roosevelt Theater black box or something, you know what I mean? It's like they try to get away with it by saying we're doing a reading series, or we put all our women in the black box in the second theater, and we say, no, we belong on the main stage. And so demand that, yeah. Okay.
Ya. A mí me gustaría preguntar, tienen el nombre de Guerrilla Girls. Guerrilla hace referencia a todas las tácticas de guerrilla, de las milicias, que tienen que ver con trabajar desde esas estructuras conocidas, pero desde los márgenes y desde la no institución, o sea, siempre estando en contra de la institución. Entonces, Guerrilla Girls sigue estando en contra de la institución, pero claro, ahora vosotras estáis dentro de la institución porque hacéis exposiciones en los mejores museos. La última que vi fue en Barcelona y fue cuando me empecé a preguntar esto. ¿Sigue siendo guerrilla o ahora qué táctica es?
Yeah,
¿Cómo
yeah.
te sientes ahora
Yeah.
al respecto, al estar dentro de lo
Yeah.
que has estado criticando durante toda tu vida?
Yeah. No, that's a very good question and a very good point. And it's an argument within the group as well. People said, why do you want to protest the Tonys? Why do you want to go on Broadway? That's crap, you know? Or, you know, why are you in these big museums now and stuff like that? So there are two sides to that. In order to infiltrate the institutions, yes, we go in. And we stand there and we say, okay, this institution is discriminatory. So that's one way to do it. The other way is to, be guerrillas and infiltrate on the outside. But I think that there's no right way to do it. We just have to keep pushing, and every opportunity that we get, we have to take and we have to try. But yeah, you know, the Guerrilla Girls became a symbol. The Guerrilla Girls became a corporation, you know. So we're not really a grassroots activist group anymore. But that's what happens. That's what happens. And so you can infiltrate from the inside sometimes. We hope that we are doing that.
We also get to count you now in the walls of the museum.
Yes, right. Yes, we get to count. You get to do the count. Yeah. Okay, any more questions?
Sí, yo tengo, en verdad no es una cuestión, es más una colocación, así, una cosa que quiero hablar. Yo soy de Brasil, entonces hablo así un portuñol, pero me quedé muy inspirada por lo que estabas hablando, que demoraste 35 años para hablar de lo que pasó en tu vida personal ahí todo. E eu me tardei como 2 dias para falar uma coisa que me queria muito falar, que passou acá dentro do leme de violência, sim, que para mim se passou muito, do grupo Poncha Nostra, é esse o nome? De la Poncha Nostra, de Guillermo, que é um grupo de México, não conheço exatamente o que é, pero hacía como chistes muito machistas, havia mulheres desnudas, sim, não? Pero eu creio iam falar depois que entravam a um espaço, porque estavam na calle, e depois entravam no espaço, e as mulheres estavam desnudas porque iam falar aí dentro, pero meu corpo está mal, não? Pero afinal estava como muito mal, eu me senti muito mal, pero não sabia por que não falei naquele momento, e agora lo hablo porque não sei se alguém concorda comigo, isso foi muito violento. Estamos dentro do museu, pero no museu há muita violência. Temos que ocupar esse lugar, sim, com nossos corpos e com nossas palavras. Gracias. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that this is part of the difficult conversations that we all have to have, right, with each other. I really thank you for coming to this party and for making it a party. We have one more question.
So, if you're tracking...
It's not on. I can't hear. Use that one.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm interested if you're tracking theater productions in translation into English. And in that number of productions, what percentage are plays by women in translation?
What do you mean, when we tour?
No. You were tracking productions where the playwright was a woman.
We were only tracking productions in English in the United States.
Okay, well, I suggest that you start tracking that because you will be shocked.
Well, you know what? I really appreciate that comment, but I would like to suggest that you also help to track it.
No,
I'm
tracking literature in translation. I'm tracking fiction and poetry in translation. And it's 70% men authors are being translated into English. Mostly.
No, I know that. And in the literary world, it's really bad. So we have to, all aspects, theater, arts, music, literature, everything must be addressed. And that's why I hope that you all feel now that you have the power to be activist artists and to address these issues that you are passionate about.
Okay, so.
No,
I'm sure it's very clear.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Muchas gracias.